Since there were not papers submitted in advance, I was asked to kind of listen to the remarks and kind of put it in the context of what we learned from doing the Global Trends 2025 study that Roy mentioned at the beginning. So let me just make a couple comments regarding what each speaker said. I'll start with Nick first because he's most fresh in my mind. He started off by saying demography, he's not a demography as destiny kind of guy. When we were doing the study, one of the fascinating things we found out was the demographers would come and talk to us, and they would be of the same mind, and then the people would listen to them would come away saying it's destiny. I mean, they would see, and they just kind of, in which they would believe more in the science than would the demographers themselves. Demographers would speak in terms of opportunities and challenges that the country would face, and then they would go through the countries like Nick did, and then the people would listen to them and they'd say, oh, Japan's going down, China's maybe doing all right now, but it's going to go down, and India's going to go up. I mean, it was almost like I began to call them demographic determinists because they just kind of saw it that way. But as Nick said, it's not that simple. Japan's rise or recovery after World War II as Germany's, I don't think he could point that strictly to demographic issues. I mean, many of their young were killed off. Singapore, I don't think you could say its success is due to demographic issues. In some ways, demography is a significant factor, but there's also the governance, how the country manages the situation that it has, the demographic situation. And in regards to the 4 countries that Nick mentioned, I would agree with him on Russia. I don't see a way out for Russia. For Japan, you could say, I don't see a way out of the demographic issue. For Japan, it is facing challenges. I actually see a way out, but I don't think they're going to take it. They could have significantly more immigration. They could do somewhat more robotics, and frankly, they could allow a lot more women into the workforce. I went to university in Japan, and it's just an amazing number of people there who are underemployed females that really could take a lot of these positions. But that takes some change in Japan, and that's a challenge I don't quite know if they're up to. China also faces the challenges, he said, not quite as significant. China, though, has done something kind of amazing. They've managed to educate the workers that they need and move them to where they need to work. I mean, there is to me, it's almost a historic shift in China of workers moving to where the jobs are. And it shows somehow a kind of a gumption by the government, a kind of a governance kind of deciding these things. They may be able to manage somewhat better. Now, India has the opportunity side of it. But this is a case where I don't know if they'll take full advantage of the demographic dividend. They're kind of in the contrast with China in the sense that they're getting a lot of new jobs, but they're not necessarily where the people with the high birth rates are. And where the high birth rates are, there's not necessarily good education, and they don't really have a system for moving the workers to the places where they need to work. In other words, there's kind of a disconnect here. So in some ways, there could actually be further problems down the line because there could be a lot of people born in these areas that are not educated for the modern workforce, are far from where the new factories are going up, and feeling rather disenchanted when they hear the news of how everything's going well in the cities. So they could actually face some problems. With regards to Ashley's presentation, I thought it was very good. At the National Intelligence Council, we don't look at the United States, really. It's one of our prescriptions, by law, or it's the end of us. So we look out. And he was looking very much at the United States. Let me give you maybe kind of an example of how others outside the United States are looking at us. That part we can look at. We have something called the Asia Working Group. I started up a few years ago. We bring together a number of scholars that focus on different parts of Asia to sit down in a room and discuss one issue. And the purpose of this is that there really aren't that many Asianists. There's a lot of Japan scholars and China scholars and India scholars. It's not like there are with Europeanists or Latin Americanists. So we found people who really focus in their own countries. We sit them down in a room, and we actually make them stay the whole day. And they hear what's going on in the other countries, and the goal of that is to see if there's some themes, some things that are bubbling up in multiple different countries that are actually similar, but we're just not looking at them because we're focused on our own. We had one session that the focus was Asian perspectives of the strategic impact of the economic crisis. And I really enjoyed this one, particularly because what I heard there was not what I thought I would hear. And I found that fascinating. As the group went around, and everybody was speaking from their own countries, what I learned was they did not think that the economic crisis was really hastening Chinese influence very much at the expense of the United States. They didn't really think this was a shame, that this was really having this impact. And I kind of walked in, a lot of Americans walked in and thought, oh my God, they're all going to be looking to the China model. They gave 4 reasons as we went around the room. One, Asia didn't really suffer that much from the economic crisis. And in some ways, I say this is a bit what I call the World Series perspective in the United States. We call baseball and we say it's the World Series. Well, Americans sometimes presume that, what we're going through, the whole rest of the world's going through. In some ways, this was a financial and economic crisis sans Asia. Asia really didn't go through that much. As we talked about the different countries, only 2 said that they had really had significant impact from the economic crisis. One was the Japan scholars, and they acknowledged that, well, Japan's been in the economic doldrums for so long that nobody's really pointing at this singular incident as causing the problems. And the other one was Cambodia, and no one really said that's going to be a driver for Asia. So the first one, Asia didn't suffer as much as we all presumed. Second reason they gave is that there's a reservoir of goodwill towards the United States that's been built up over a long time, and it's not just going to be wiped away in a singular incident. In some ways, as I put this to the group, we get a one-time pass here. We were seen as causing the problems here, but these countries had a lot of good faith in the United States, and they were willing to accept the fact that one time you can make a mistake. And so they were willing to overlook it. Third thing was, in these Asian countries, they still had the belief that the U.S. would recover and again be the engine of growth. And so they were still kind of tying themselves to the United States. And the fourth reason they gave was they said basically the China model, or the Beijing consensus, was not appealing to these Asians. They said especially to this new generation of leaders that have come up. They've come up during this time of democratic ferment and the democratic movements towards democracy in some countries in Asia. Other ones have traveled abroad or studied abroad. They just really aren't looking at China as a model. One of the interesting things when we went back to look at it, the 1997 financial crisis, if anything, consolidated democracy in some countries more than damaged it. In Korea, for example, and in Indonesia, it helped to consolidate democracy. So the kind of notion that these people would turn against the United States we just didn't find was true. One of the ironies here in this sense then is in 1997, you could say the Asians were probably at fault for their economic crisis or financial crisis, but many of them blamed the United States. In 2008, most people recognized the United States was at fault, but very few blamed the United States. They still have a lot of faith in what the United States is doing. So this is just a different angle to what Ashley was talking about. It's the way they see us rather than we see ourselves. That's all I got. Thank you.